His broadcast career spans more than 3 decades. He's known throughout the state to sports fans, farmers, and radio listeners as a broadcaster of the first caliber. But at the end of this month, Wally Ausley will be stepping down. It was way back in the 30s at the tender age of 12 that Wally Ausley's voice was first heard on the WPTF airwaves.
I was chosen to be one of the ones to come up here to Raleigh and be on the Saturday morning 4-H program when I was in the 6th grade. So I went back home and made microphones out of tin cans and put them on sticks and ran string from them and did all that kind of thing. And that was my first really feel for, hey, this might be fun to do, a good industry.
And so he went on to earn a degree in radio and television at Chapel Hill. Wally then launched his radio career in 1946 in Durham. And after a few years in the Air Force in the 50s, he returned to WTIK. But he knew he'd hit the big time when he joined WPTF in 1960.
I was born and reared on WPTF. That was our radio station. That's all we ever listened to, except occasionally on a Saturday night you might tune to WSM to hear the Grand Ole Opry. But other than that, it was PTF all the time. And so to come to work for this station just was a realization of a dream come true for me, since I'd chosen broadcasting as a career. And to become its manager was, well, was beyond my wildest dream.
And even though Ausley was named to manage WPTF in 1977, he's remembered most in North Carolina's agricultural community for his 16-year tenure as farm director for the station. It all started back in 1961.
The station made a decision. They, for years, had part-time agriculturalists to do their broadcasting. And they decided to make a broadcaster the farm director. And they looked around for somebody. And Mr. Graham Pointer, the program director here, said, "Hey, you were born in the country, weren't you?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Would you like to be the farm director?" I said, "I don't know anything about farming." He says, "Well, that's okay. You can learn, can't you?" And I said, "I'll try my best."
And his trying paid off so well, he was named the state's Farm Broadcaster of the Year nearly a dozen times, along with a host of awards from agricultural groups. He's even the recipient of North Carolina State's coveted Watauga Medal. Certainly, one of the longest-running and successful partnerships in local radio involves Ausley's close association with the late Bill Jackson.
Bill and I did the sports together as a team. We did a couple of talk shows in the mornings. In his morning show, I did his news and his weather and things like that as sort of his side man. And it was a great association until he got ill in 1973. As a morning man, Bill was unparalleled. I mean, he was definitely in the class with an Arthur Godfrey or some of those great morning guys. Bill Jackson was the best.
But certainly Wally Ausley must be remembered as one of the best sportscasters in this part of the country. Who can possibly forget the events of this very year?
Whitberg tries about a 30-footer. No good. Step back. Lorenzo Charles. State. Lorenzo Charles slams it in. A missed shot from 35 feet. Lorenzo Charles grabbed it, stuffed it back in. The Cinderella team has done it. The glass slipper fit. The Wolfpack has won the national championship.
Nothing was as exciting as the last 9 games of the 1983 season, when 7 of those games, by all definition, should have been lost by the Wolfpack, and somehow, miraculously, they pulled them out. Those were exciting times, and not only I, but I suspect you and everybody in the room here and everybody listening to us right now got very much caught up in the Wolfpack.
Wally Ausley's career will be highlighted at a special roasting by his friends and associates on Thursday night, the 28th. For Morning Digest, I'm Phil Pratt.
At this time, I would like to welcome all of you to the Wally Ausley Roast. All of us have one thing in common, our admiration for Wally. Wally has made a great contribution. Wally has made a great contribution to his community, to his state, to his fellow man through his chosen profession, broadcasting. We are going to miss him very much at Durham Life Broadcasting. I know he will be very successful in his new career because Wally is that kind of fellow in retirement. I thought I'd better give him a rose or two tonight at this time without the thorns, because I don't think he's going to get many more without them later on in the evening. Again, I want to welcome you and have a good time.
Next, we have one of the new members of Durham Live Broadcasting, who just a couple of months ago joined our staff as general manager of the three stations, and I've gotten to know him quite well in the last few weeks, and a great gentleman. I'm looking forward to working with him for many years, and it's my great pleasure to introduce the general manager of Durham Live Broadcasting, and that is Don Curtis. Don?
I told Felton Coley shortly after that I accepted this position, I said, he told me then that Wally had told him about a year ago he was planning to retire. I said, no worry, you now have in your midst a person with great charm and great salesmanship, and I will talk him out of retirement. I have tried persuasion, I have tried reasoning, I've tried begging, I've tried threatening, coercing, blackmail, insults most recently, smearing, and I even, in pure desperation, tried talking about more money. They all failed. And in the interest of not having another retirement roast anytime soon, I would like to turn to you with a proposition. I would like to put it up to a vote. All in favor of Wally Ausley not retiring, please say yes.
Next case.
Next, call your next case. It has been my pleasure to know Wally for 6 years and to work with him for 6 weeks, and it's been a lot of fun, and we're so delighted to see all of you here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. We have some special honors for you, Wally, and we're going to get underway now. I'd like to ask the Honorable Mayor of the City of Raleigh, Mr. Smedes York, to come up here.
Thank you very much, Gary. A lot of things I've done as mayor maybe haven't been that much of a pleasure, but this really is. I really like Wally, and Wally has been broadcasting for a long time. I've played a little bit of basketball at NC State, and when I say a little bit, that's what I mean. But Wally was broadcasting back in those days. He was with Bill Jackson, I think most of you remember, and the thing I like about Wally is he didn't make any distinction between the players. When I would come into the game, which would be very rare, he would never say anything like, well, this game's over, or, he always just announced the game, and we used to try to get him to use our nicknames. We had some of our players you may remember, Pete Oxel, his nickname was Big Time, and Kenny Roloff was the Kingfish. We'd always try to get Wally to use those nicknames, and we never could do it, but it's a great pleasure for me to be here because I do feel a very close personal connection to Wally, and I am representing the governor as well as myself tonight. We have 2 proclamations declaring it Wally Ausley Day. So Wally, would you stand up here next to me and let me present these to you. This is from the state of North Carolina, whereas Wally Ausley has come to symbolize excellence in the field of broadcasting. Whereas Wally Ausley as an announcer, as a sportscaster, and most recently as general manager of WPTF Radio has become a familiar, welcome, and significant part of our lives. Whereas Wally Ausley has been honored this day by his friends, colleagues, and admirers in recognition of his service to WPTF, to the people who have heard his voice over the years. Whereas Wally Ausley is retiring as general manager of WPTF Radio, but will continue his superb coverage of North Carolina State University Wolfpack sports events. Whereas a scholarship in speech communications is being established in his honor. Whereas Wally Ausley, in his work and in his life, has set a standard by which those who follow him in broadcasting should be measured. Now, therefore, James B. Hunt, Jr., Governor of the state of North Carolina, do hereby proclaim Thursday, July 28, 1983, as Wally Ausley Day in North Carolina, and commend this observance to our citizens. Wally?
Thank you, Smedes.
Now, we didn't want both to say exactly the same thing, so this is also Wally Ausley Day. Whereas it is not yet time for football or basketball on radio, it is time for Raleigh to honor one of its distinguished citizens who has always been on the ball in season and out.
Thank you.
Whereas broadcasting from Wolfpack Heaven, Irvin Wally Ausley has been the eyes and ears of Raleigh radio listeners for 22 enjoyable years. I finished 20 years ago, so you must have just started.
We're both young.
Whereas Wally is retiring as general manager of WPTF Radio, he is not retiring from the Wolfpack Network, where he will continue to spread the Wolfpack gospel, according to Ausley and his jovial sidekick, Gary Dornburg. Whereas just as he churns up the waters in his cabin cruiser, Wally churns up his radio audiences with his exciting, pulsating, and I didn't write this part, absolutely unbiased description of Wolfpack action.
All right.
I think you can tell who he's for, but
I hope so.
it's a little bit biased. Now, therefore, do I, Smedes York, Mayor of the City of Raleigh, North Carolina, hereby proclaim Thursday, July 28, 1983, to be Wally Ausley Day in Raleigh. Request that all Wolfpack ears acknowledge the career of this dedicated announcer who first started in radio at the age of 12, broadcasting about blue ribbon hogs, and eventually will wind up his career talking about red ribbon wolves. That's not bad.
That's not bad.
And furthermore, wish this man of the microphone good health, a peaceful retirement with his wife Norma, and plenty of cruising and piddling time. And in addition, express our appreciation to him from all of the fans of the Wolfpack Sports Network for his memorable and never monotonous accounts of basketball and football action by establishing the Wally Ausley Scholarship in Speech Communications with the hope that someday one of the fortunate scholarship recipients will be able to report an NCAA basketball championship game as composed, calm, and collected. And I was at the game, so I didn't hear it. As Wally did from Albuquerque, New Mexico on that night to remember, April 4th, 1983. Wally, congratulations and thank you.
That's the best proclamation I know. That's great. Thank you, Steve. Now that's a proclamation. Our next presentation, and a great friend of Wally's, and oddly enough from his home area, and we'll go into more detail, I'm sure, as the roast gets underway about his home area, but the mayor of Fuquay, Varina, Mr. Alfred Johnson.
All right.
If you would, I hope he's here. Come up to the day of place. All right, there he is.
Wally?
Yes, sir.
I represent the town of Fuquay, Varina, and also I'm speaking from the White House, the president.
Oh, right.
Smedes said he was representing the governor's office, so the town of Fuquay, Raleigh, so I'm representing the town of Fuquay, Varina, and the White House.
Tell Ronnie I said hello.
I will. But anyway, on behalf of all of our citizens from Fuquay, Varina, my wife and I are here tonight, and I have a proclamation that has been printed in our local paper, and I'd like to read it and present it to you from all the citizens of Fuquay, Varina, Harnett County, Wake County, and the state of North Carolina. Please stand up. Proclamation from the capital of Wake County, the town of Fuquay, Varina. Proclamation. Whereas it is desired to join in the celebration of the retirement of Wally Ausley from his position as general manager of WPTF Radio, and whereas it is desired and to commemorate and express appreciation for the many years of dedicated service by Wally Ausley as an outstanding radio personality, amplifying the best in integrity and concern for his fellow man, and whereas the town of Fuquay, Varina particularly wishes to express its appreciation for his assistance in saving its hospital, Southern Wake Hospital. Therefore, I, Mayor Alfred M. Johnson, now therefore proclaim July the 28th, 1983 to be Wally Ausley Day.
Thank
Congratulations.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you. That's great. You're proud. I appreciate it.
Our next presentation here for Wally, also a close friend of his, and he represents quite a significant number of folks who are here in the audience, because
He happens to be the president of the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters, and we have a great many broadcasters here, fellow broadcasters with Wally, who've known Wally for years and years. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of NCAB, Tom Campbell.
Thomas. Representing the broadcasters and God. And by the way, she sends her regards. Isn't that right, Norma? If you were to take a survey among the over 300 radio and television stations in the state of North Carolina as to who was the best liked, best known, the person that probably most singularly typified the qualities and ideals of the perfect broadcaster, one name would come to the top of that list, and that name would be Wally Ausley. His voice is known from one end of North Carolina to the other. It is a voice that comes across the speaker as being very warm and a gentle man, a person who has enthusiasm and a zest for life, a person with a great sense of humor and a deep love of people. It's the kind of voice that belongs to a person that you immediately feel like you would like to get to know better, to have as a friend. We have in North Carolina a very rich tradition of great broadcasters. We could spend a lot of time reading that list. Some of the names on it would include Ed Murrow, Charles Carrault, David Brinkley, Carl Gertch. I think oftentimes in a situation like this that we overwork and overuse superlatives. And so it's probably best to try to keep things very simple to make them more meaningful. Wally, your peers in the broadcasting industry are very proud of you. We are honored to have worked with you. And I think that the best thing that we can say about Wally Ausley is that he is the broadcaster's broadcaster. Tom.
Well, our next presentation is really something that I've looked forward to, and I know I, along with many, many others on the committee that put this together and all the people who have been involved with this roast have just looked forward to this particular moment. And to help and to really share this moment with all of you, I would like to call again the president of Durham Life Broadcasting, Mr. Felton Coley, who has a very, very special presentation indeed. Felton?
If Dr. Bill Franklin and Rudy Pate would come forward, please. Wally, if you will stand up. I'll stand over here with you. Okay, Bill. Here's the payoff. Yes, sure. Good. This occasion started out as the Wally Ausley Scholarship Fund, but enough money has been contributed by Wally's friends to now call it the Wally Ausley Endowment Speech Communications. Wally, here's a check for $10,000 for you to give to Dr. Bill Franklin and Rudy Pate. We still feel like we'll get about another $2,000 when all the accounting records are through.
Oh, that's great.
Great.
Well, this is really great. I guess they're going to give me a turn a little bit later on, but I couldn't pass up this opportunity for two reasons. One is I've never held $10,000 at one time before. And secondly, I am real proud of the opportunity. Can you imagine that somewhere in the future, some youngster will be learning how to be a broadcaster, and you won't have to listen to people of my quality and my abilities. Somebody will really be good as a result of this help that's going to come along. So it's my pleasure on behalf of every one of you
because a little piece of this came from each of you out there and some other folks, by the way, who sent in contributions and couldn't come for one reason or another tonight. And so I want to present this to Rudy and Dr. Franklin. And Rudy, you all just come up here. You might, if you have anything to say and tell them about that, you and Bill go ahead.
I'd like to thank each of you for that small piece. I started at North Carolina State in 1970. I was hired by the English department, and I was one of the first persons to teach broadcasting. And I was really taken back when I came here, because the microphones that I used at that time, they found and stuck in the middle of these tables.
That Wally Ausley is a special, special person on this campus. He holds the highest degree that the highest honor that the North Carolina State University can bestow, and that's the Watauga Medal. In recognition of what he has done and continues to do to add vitality and strength to this university and to portray its image to the people of North Carolina. Now, I represent two other gentlemen and a body here tonight, Wally, that I want you to know. I represent President Friday, who sends his best wishes. Chancellor Polton, don't let Ed Pickard hear this, Presbyterian minister over there, but old Bruce is up at Bar Harbor in Maine. Emphasis on the bar. And he's on a vacation up there, otherwise he would be here tonight. And I also represent the Board of Trustees of the North Carolina State University. Say to you all that this endowment will be the first such resource in our Department of Speech and Communications, and it will carry forward the personal ideals, the professional achievements of Wally Ausley through the lives of the young men and women who will study as a result of this scholarship in perpetuity. And we're so proud of it. We're so grateful to all of you for it. And I want you to know that it holds special significance to this university and especially to Wally Ausley. Now, Wally has become emancipated, I understand. You know, when Eric Severide retired from CBS, he said that all broadcasters were slaves to the clock. And so Wally has been emancipated from that sense of slavery. And when I hear about the word schedule, which means so much to you broadcasters, I remember the story that Dr. Albert Edwards, another Presbyterian minister in this city, told us a few years ago about the doctor and his nurse here in Raleigh who had an affair. The affair went on for some time. The nurse died after several years, and they took her here to Brown Wind Funeral Home on St. Mary's Street. And the doctor came by to pay his respects, and he leans over in the casket to kiss the lady. And as he stands back up, he could feel a stare from the back. The stare was so intense, he could feel it. And he looked around, and it's his wife, the doctor's wife, and he said, "Her cheek is still warm." Whereupon the wife said, "Hot or cold, she goes out of here at 2 o'clock.
Well, all of the pleasantries have just ended. It's time for the skewering. And rather than an MC, we have a master chef here. He hails from South Carolina, and a little over 5 years ago had the good sense to leave that state. He was born in and around Union County, and they have put up some kind of an edifice. I think it's a one-holer to commemorate that. When you say Carolina to him, he thinks of South Carolina. That tells you something about where he hails from. No, I figured I better get him in now because I know he's going to lay some on me. He's the inimitable morning man of WPTF Radio, has been for the last 5.5 years, I guess. And I've gotten to know him in that time and all of his little idiosyncrasies. And there are quite a few. Ladies and gentlemen, our master chef, our MC, Maury Odell.
Maury!
A light.
Don't worry, Maury. After tomorrow, you don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, I know. Ray, let these old people have their way. If anybody has to tinkle, you better go now. This will call time on all these folks up here, so if you hear this, they've had 5 minutes, because I have to get up at 4:30 in the morning. Well, I'll tell you, there's enough material out here, you just go forever. And I put my tie back on because I decided I don't like Jim Balbano after all. He ain't ever done nothing for me. Smedes tickled me talking about how excited he got, and Wally was so calm when we won the national championship. Wally didn't tell him he had to burn that outfit, did he? Don't you feel kind of funny being here with all these Italians? Listen here. Scirocco, some Volkswagen bills. Pasillo, Valvano, Flamia. That's our program director for QDR. He changed his name. Flamia. They all talk like this. Hey, how you doing there, kid? And they got a knife in your back, you know. I didn't know Black & Decker made chicken, by the way, Jim. That was a nice meal, though. Down in Union County, when we ordered chicken, we used to get a quarter fry. That would be something like 2 necks and a back. So we never had Italian food down there. I love some. Did anybody get a haircut besides me before you came up here tonight? How many men got a haircut? Now you know who appreciates you. You know what, I look out on this sea of faces, and the one thing I've discovered, Wally, ain't a hell of a lot to do on Thursday night in Raleigh. And Tom Campbell talking about that warm and gentle voice. Do you know that I came here 7 years ago, by the way, Gary? How soon we forget?
Well, the first year and a half, I didn't know you.
And 5.5 years ago, Wally put me on the morning show, and after about a week, I went out and bought a pair of Alcoa underwear. That's how warm and gentle his voice is. I can finally throw those away, Pat. They have been chafing me to death. Smedes representing the governor. Jim Hunt and Jesse Helms are together. Jim's trying to get an introduction to Jerry Falwell. Somebody said we're going to roast Wally, and somebody else said, is that a roast or pig picking? I don't know. And Rudy talking about building the canal. I didn't know they went back to the Panama Canal together. That is a long time ago. And I want Ken Durham, our accountant, to find out how a man retires at 55. That's what I want to know. Well, let's see. We will say this. Let me make this announcement before we begin, that this program will be closed captioned for the bourbon impaired. So I thought you better know that. One thing you never do, and I notice everybody does, you adjust the microphone. Have you ever been at one of those meetings? I was at one recently, and I said, can everybody hear me? Some poor little guy sitting over there, he goes, yes, damn it. Tonight, roasting Wally Ausley is I guess my second favorite thing. Putting out a fire in my hair with an axe probably is my first favorite thing. And the proceeds from this roast, as you know, go to Wally's second favorite charity. You know what his first favorite charity is. Oh, by the way, we do have cassettes of the NC State Championship game on sale tonight. We do, in the lobby. And those proceeds go to the Wally Ausley Memorial Brothel. He had originally intended them for the Hare Krishnas so they'd stop aggravating everybody out at the airport, but he changed his mind. And it's only fitting that I be the master of ceremonies up here tonight. After you hear the rest of this crowd, you'll find out why. But I just got back from the Kaopectate Festival. I know why you laugh. It ran 4 days. We were a little embarrassed up at the station planning this event. I got quite embarrassed, as a matter of fact, when Wally announced his retirement, because several people said, we thought he already had. You know? Harnett County, that's where you're from, right, Wally? Right, Wally. Harnett County is not unlike Union County. Gary brought that up. Union County, South Carolina. I have to tell a story about Union that's one of my all-time favorite stories. It's true, and Wally can relate to this because Fuquay and Union are about the same size. When I was growing up, you always have one young man in the community whose truck did not get backed up to the loading dock.
you know, close enough. And we had one of those. His name was Harold Dean Watson. But if you were in Union, it'd be Harold Dean. So Harold Dean and all of us boys would hang around Paul Greer's Shell service station in the summertime. And we'd play the pinball machine and, you know, drink dopes. That's what they call them in Union, dopes and nabs and stuff like that. And one weekend, we missed Harold Dean. Went from Friday to Sunday. We got rather concerned, called around, couldn't find him. Monday morning, here he comes across the parking lot. He's got a grin on from ear to ear. Somebody says, Harold Dean, where you been all weekend? He said, I got married Friday. Well, boy, we, you know, give him a little bit of an eye. Somebody says, who'd you marry? He said, Mary Alice Brown. They said, good Lord, everybody in Union's been with her. He said, Union ain't that big a town. It all started for Wally in a 1,000-watt log radio station. Wally been with PTF a long time. I'll tell you how far back he goes, Felton. You might remember this. Wally's been with the company so long that when he first came with us, the company car was a Schwinn. But through diligence and hard work, he came up through the ranks. Durham Life immediately recognized his ability to handle people. He has a particular knack. For example, Wally was the first person to get into exercise. You go in and ask him for a raise, he tells you to take a walk. He knows how to dismiss people, and he's had some experience with that too. And he's got a neat way, and you management people might want to catch on to this. He takes an employee who's to be dismissed, takes them to a really elegant lunch, and orders theirs to go. But you have to ask yourself, why are we here tonight honoring this man with a dinner? I asked Gary that, you've asked yourself that. All these people out here gathered, Wally, all your friends, and then you got these people up on the dais. And we want to know why you get a dinner. Here's a man who doesn't know the meaning of the word quit. Wally doesn't know the meaning of the word dissemble. He doesn't know the meaning of the word fear. So several of us got together and bought him a dictionary. But he gets a dinner. He gets a dinner. Wally wouldn't even let us advertise condominiums when I first came to PTF. Norma had to explain it to him. She said, it's okay, Wally. It's okay. Well, Wally gets a dinner. Let me point out to you that Lot, you remember the biblical character Lot? I know Dr. Pickard remembers Lot. Lot, who once said, salt we got plenty of. What we need is booze and broads. He never got a dinner. Noah, on the ark, told his wife, said, be sure to put down plenty of paper for the elephants. Don't let them watch the rabbits. Never got a dinner. Noah never got a dinner. Ben Franklin, by the way, Norma, his wife also told him to go fly a kite. Never got a dinner. Dolly Parton never got a dinner. Dolly Parton once asked, at what temperature does silicone freeze? She never got a dinner. But this man we give a dinner. Man who went to see Guess Who's Coming to Dinner twice and guessed wrong both times. Got a letter in the mail today from Wally, and his secretary, Rosemary, asked me to read it to him. She says she has to read all of his mail to him. He is a Carolina man, after all. I mean, he's a graduate of University of North Carolina. He was the only one out there ordering a Carolina cocktail tonight, Perrier and water. It's enough of this frivolity. But I got a letter, or Wally got a letter today, and Rosemary asked me to read it to him tonight. It says, my dear friend in the Lord, perhaps you've heard of me and my nationwide campaign in the cause of temperance. Each year for the past 14 years, I've made a tour of Florida, Georgia, Iowa, Illinois, North Carolina, and Ohio. I have delivered a series of lectures on the evils of drinking. On this tour, I've been accompanied by my young friend and assistant, Clyde Lindstrom. Clyde, a young man of a good family, and excellent background is a pathetic example of a life ruined by excessive indulgence in whiskey and women. Clyde would appear with me at the lectures and sit on the platform wheezing and staring at the audience through bleary, bloodshot eyes, sweating profusely, picking his nose and making obscene gestures, while I would point him out as an example of what overindulgence can do to a person. Last fall, unfortunately, Clyde died. A mutual friend has been kind enough to give me your name, Wally, and I wonder if you would be available to take Clyde's place on my 1984 tour. Well, before I introduce the roasters and tinkle their bell and everything, I have a presentation of my own to Wally. This is Wally. Wally is a thrifty person. And this is Wally's first dollar. The very first dollar Wally Ausley ever made. We had it framed. You'll notice it has been dusted every day for fingerprints, Norma's fingerprints, and I present you with this, Wally.
Thank you, Maury.
Wally told Hal Stanley, says, Hal, if you'll stick with me, I'll make you rich and famous. Rich and famous. Wally tonight is retiring as vice president and general manager of WPTF. Hal Stanley is selling real estate in Holden Beach. That is the Christian attitude. That is a real friendship, I'd say. But, now, Hal did sell Wally his first piece, a property on the coast. And Wally went down to look at it, and it was flooded. So he goes to complain to Hal. Hal sold Wally his first boat. So we need to get him on our staff up there, Bob. Outside of Hal's office is a sign that is the motto of the Hal Stanley Real Estate Company. It says, Nunquam agua es verde es no qualitario agua, which is Latin for never knowingly underwater. What you're about to hear is a compilation of half-truths. And Hal Stanley is here tonight. I'll let you decide which half is true. Hal?
First off, let me say that he sold me my first boat. And it sunk. Speaking of rising water, we had a situation where there was a gentleman down in an area where the water began to rise. And they came by in a Jeep and they said, sir, we're evacuating this area. We'll be glad to take you out. He said, no, I'm not going, I'm staying. I have faith in God, and I'm going to stay. The water continued to rise. It wasn't long before a group came by in a boat. And they said, sir, the water is rising and will continue to rise. You're unsafe. We'll take you out of here. He said, thank you, but I'm going to stay because I have faith in God. Well, the water continued to rise. And he was sitting up on the crest of the roof. The water was lapping around his feet, and they came by in a helicopter and with a bullhorn said, sir, we'll drop down a ladder, and if you'll grab hold of it, we'll take you out of here and save you. He said, nope, thank you anyway, but I have faith in God. The water continued to rise, and he drowned. He arrived in that place you go when you drown. He was upset. He said, I want to see God. They said, fine. Took him down, put him in a room. A few minutes, the person of God came in. Said, what's the trouble? He said, you God? I said, yeah. He said, I just don't understand this. I had faith in you, and you let me drown. He looked at him, he said, you fool, I sent for you 3 times and you wouldn't go. Wally and I started off together, and it looks like we're going to wind up together. We started off in Durham, WSSB, in 1948, making about, I think, $25 a week. And we had good jobs, except every other week the check bounced. I had the privilege of working with him
we did the last Southern Conference tournament before all the teams pulled out and formed the ACC. It was played in Memorial Auditorium between George Washington and William and Mary. And the star was a fellow named Chet Giermack. Now, most of you don't even know those names, but that's how far back we go. The station we worked for was so poor that they didn't have any stands to put the microphones on. We had to hold the microphones. We didn't have but one, and I did the color, and he did the play-by-play, and he'd do play-by-play, and then he'd say it's time for the color, and he'd hand it to me. Half the time we didn't know whether it worked or not. You go like that and talk into it. But Car Scott was the governor, and he made the presentation of the trophy that night. And I said, well, we ought to at least, get the governor making the presentation. And I said, Wally, what are we going to do? He said, go on down there. So I went down on the floor at Memorial Auditorium, and there was a nice stand there with WPTF on it. There was another microphone over there with WDNC on it. Another one over there that said WBT on it. And there was my hand with mine up there like that. He was telling me today he still had that picture of those 3 microphone stands in my hand. I know you're supposed to say bad things at a roast, but I've known him since 1948, and I can't think of anything bad to say about him. He's always been a very good friend. He's the easiest man to work with I've ever worked with. I've never in my life seen him anywhere near being mad or disgusted or upset even. So, Wally, I don't know of anything to say bad about you. Of course, I haven't lived with you. But as far as I'm concerned, I deem it an honor to be here, and I deem it an even larger honor to have been your friend over the years.
Well, as you can see, Wally brought in a ringer. I didn't invite him. Gary didn't invite him. Wally invited him. Norma didn't invite him. Norma said, get somebody mean up there. $25 a week. Things haven't changed much, have they, Wally? Right, Gary? You think that's bad? Valvano can't even afford a tie. Our next speaker, we have certain people up here we'll have to have interpreters for. But our next speaker, Hap Hansen, needs no interpreter because he always tells you that nobody understands him anyway. Charlotte, he told 2 girls out in the lobby that nobody understood him. You could say that Hap Hansen is witty, he is urbane, he is gifted intellectually, talented. You could say that, but I won't. And I don't know anybody else who will. And conservative, holy cow. He makes Jesse Helms look like Hubert Humphrey. That's how conservative. He has cuffs on his boxer shorts. Now, anybody from Carolina y'all can relate to that. He thinks Jerry Falwell created the earth in 6 days with a minimum amount of contributions. Now, Hap and I are both churchgoers, proud to say that we're churchgoers, and we have a lot of religious conversations up at PTF in our spare time, which, by the way, Mr. Womble is getting less and less. But we do, and Hap and I were talking the other day, and I said, well, what do you think about the 10 Commandments? He said, I think it's nice to have such a good selection from which to choose. Hap just recently attended a tent meeting, and I'd like to give you sort of a replay, an instant replay of this tent meeting. Reverend Leroy Brown is the pastor, and Reverend Leroy has asked Hap Hansen to come up and give his personal testimony, and it goes something like this.
We're going to ask Brother Hansen to please come forward and give a personal testimony. Come up here, Brother Hap, and I want you to tell it all, brother.
Hap said, boy, I used to be bad. He said, gosh, I used to be bad. Said, I drank liquor. He said,
Tell it all, brother.
He said, liquor? He said, I'd drink anything. I'd drink shoe polish.
He said, tell it all, brother.
He said, and women? I loved the women. It didn't make any difference. Married, single, fat, skinny, tall, short. I loved them all. He said, tell it all, brother. He said, well, I even made love to a chicken once. He said, oh, I wouldn't have told that, brother.
That'll be flipped out of the show.
Make an edit right there, would you? Make an edit right there. I was talking to Charlotte, his delightful, charming wife. Have been married, God knows how many times. But I think he got it right this time. He said he was going to keep on doing it till he got it right. They married a school teacher. Isn't that just, you do it till you get it right. Charlotte said, have you ever seen Hap in a bathing suit? I said, no. She said, it looks like a cellulite farm. By the way, Hap, Gary will explain that to you in a bit. Ladies and gentlemen, this fellow has been with PTF a long time. He is a wonderful man, a good friend. His name is Hap Hansen. I hope you'll welcome him.
Are we roasting Wally or me?
That's your time.
Listen, when I get as old as Wally and I get ready to retire, then you can roast me, okay? I mean, knock it off till then, my goodness. You know, there's a side of Wally that you may not know about. Wally is very scriptural. Now, you've heard references to God and the Bible, but really, Wally is a very scriptural person. You know, Wally is from down near Calivet Springs in Harnett County, and Bill Marshburn will vouch for this. There are 3 world denominations in Harnett County, are there not? 3 of them. That's right. They're a very religious part of the country. I guess you'd call Harnett County the cornerstone or the bedrock of the Bible Belt. Now, Wally, as a youth, spent many hours at what we call all-day preaching and dinner on the grounds. Now, during that time, Wally learned an awful lot of Scripture. Of course, you can tell he took advantage of the dinners as well. Now, one day I had said something on the air that Wally didn't like, so he called me in for what he calls one of his consultation sessions. And he laid it on pretty hard, just like Maury was talking about a moment ago. And when I left out of the office, Wally said something like, spare the rod and spoil the child. Well, I turned to Rosemary and I said, Rosemary, what's all this Scripture all about? She told me, she said, well, listen, every time Wally has someone come in the office, he always says a word of Scripture. In fact, she said that when the Wolfpack, after they won the ACC tournament, went to the western part of the country, he had selected a Scripture to take with him. And she said it was something from Isaiah about eagles. So I went home and I looked it up. And here it is. Now, I want you to follow along with me. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. Now, you know, after every game that the Pack won, you'd see Thurl Bailey stand up there, and he'd always give God the glory. Now, I really respected that in Thurl. And, of course, I see why now. This is the Scripture that Wally selected. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. Now, you can't tell me that when Alonzo Charles stuffed in that dunk shot that he didn't have wings. Then it says, they shall run and not be weary. Wittenberg, Lowe, Gannon, McQueen, they ran all night long, and I couldn't tell they were tired. I don't know about you. But here's the one that really hit home. And they shall walk and not faint. Well, when Jimmy came out on the court after that last dunk shot and the buzzer blown, I thought sure he was going to faint, but he didn't. Now, see? Now, that leads me up to what I'm going to talk about next, because not long after that, I went in to see Wally again, and there were 3 ahead of me in the office. And as I walked in, I took my seat to wait my turn to see Wally, and first, a little Girl Scout walked in. Oh, she was so cute. Dressed up in that little green dress, you know, with the little bandana and the beret. And she had a box of Girl Scout cookies in her hand, and she walked in there, and she said, Mr. Ausley,
She says, we're having our Girl Scout cookie drive, and I'd like to know if I could have some radio announcements. He says, sure, honey, you know we can fix you up. He picked her up and he sat her down in the chair, and he says, we'll be glad to include your Girl Scout troop in our public service announcements. In fact, now here's the side you fellas didn't know about. He reached in his billfold, pulled out $5 and says, I'll buy the first box of cookies. Now, am I right? That's right. And as she walked out the door, Joanne and Evelyn and Rosemary and Sonja and all the girls were there in the office on coffee break, and we heard Wally. And Wally said, suffer the little children to come unto me. Well, next up, this gentleman was waiting to go in to see him, and he said, Mr. Ausley, my father is celebrating his 90th birthday, and we have relatives all over the area. There's no way I can get in touch with all of them. Said, I wish you could get a public service announcement on for me, advertising a meeting we're going to have, a reunion for my dad, so that everybody could come. Wally says, oh, I'll be more than happy to do that for you. My gracious, yes. He says, in fact, he says, I want you, when you go back, to tell your father happy birthday for me. Wally says, I certainly will. And as he walked out the door, we were all listening now. We wanted to know what he was going to say next. He says, honor thy father and thy mother. Well, we all appreciated that. The next fellow to go in ahead of me, he had on the tallest, shiniest boots you've ever seen. Pair of riding breeches. Oh, he was just a fashion picture. He had a polo shirt on with that little insignia up here on it. He had one of those hard hats on they wear in the polo games, and he had a riding crop in his hand. He was whipping his leg as he walked in Wally's office, and Wally says, yes, sir, can I help you? He said, yes. I represent the Edgemont Horse Club from Long Island, New York. We have a horse show coming up out at Dorton Arena at the fairgrounds, and we want some announcements. And Wally says, well, we'll be glad to work you into our public service schedule. No. He says, you do not understand. This is a fancy riding club. Not only do we have folks from North Carolina, they come in from Virginia, New York, South Carolina, even Union County. And we want some announcements on the air. We'd like to purchase some time. And Wally says, well, I'd be glad to sell you some time. He says, now our 30-second announcements are $85 apiece. He says, you don't understand. This is the Edgemont Horse Club. This is an exclusive organization. We want at least 60 seconds to tell our story. And Wally says, well, that'll be $150 if you run 1-minute spots. He says, and listen, we don't want any amateurs like Johnny Hood or Hap Hansen doing these spots. Wally says, well, with me doing the spots, 60-second spots, those spots will run you $300 apiece. He says, that's okay. Money is no object. So Wally says, okay, I think you say it's coming off next Thursday. Probably 10 spots will do the job for you. No 10 spots. We want a saturation campaign. Wally says, okay. How many would you like to have? The man says, we need at least 100 spots. Wally says, man. He says, that's $30,000. He says, that's all right. He says, how do you want me to bill this? He says, no billing. Reached in his little pocket up here, and he pulled out his checkbook, and he sat down, and he wrote him a check, $30,000. There you are, Mr. Ausley. Enjoyed doing business with you. He walked out of the office just slapping his thigh with that crop, and of course, all of us were standing around just dying to know what he was going to quote from the book. Wally stood up there behind his desk, sat down in his chair, threw his feet up, lit his pipe. You could see the smoke just curling towards the ceiling. Finally, he laid his pipe down. He threw his head back, folded his hands, and said, he was a stranger, and I took him in. Now, Wally, I'd like to leave you with this closing scripture. You're a scriptural man, so let me leave you with this verse. Paul said this in the 5th chapter of 1 Timothy, the 23rd verse. He was giving advice to old and retired folks. All right. And he said,
Drink a little wine for thy stomach's sake and thy frequent infirmities. God bless you, Wally.
All right, Al. Thank you, Al.
Our next speaker, Hap, will act as his interpreter. Johnny Hood is our next speaker. Johnny's farm director at WPTF, former morning man, been with the station about 10 years. Johnny has proven himself in crisis management. Whenever we need a crisis, Johnny manages it. But Johnny is probably the most sophisticated person at WPTF, I would say. The only thing is, he still can't understand why you cannot buy Chivas Regal in cans. Johnny Hood may be the only person up here who is as tight, thrifty as Wally. Johnny has this recurring dream. Johnny's in a bar. It's a hot summer day. He's in this bar. He's had about 3 martinis. In his dream, he's had these 3 martinis. This gorgeous, voluptuous 25-year-old blonde walks through the door. Walks over and sits down beside Johnny. Sounds good so far. Smiles at him and picks up his check. Johnny is the only person, and picks up his check. For those who are impaired, picks up his check. Johnny is the only person I know that buys his wife generic perfume. He said if it's good enough for Norma Ausley, it's good enough for his wife. Delightful little Coca-Cola bottle style container. Johnny is a golfer. He and I have been golf partners for some time now. Recently we were playing. I hit a nice slice, which is not uncommon for me. I mean a real banana slice into the woods over on the right. I says to Johnny, I said, which club should I take? He said, don't worry about the club. Be sure to take plenty of food and water. But he did do one thing for me. He showed me how to cut 10 strokes off my golf game. He said, all you have to do is get rid of one thing. I said, what's that? He said, witnesses. Johnny, I want you to come up here and tee off. Johnny Hood.
Yeah.
If you ring that bell while I'm standing up here, that bell is going to disappear and you're going back into the hospital for another back operation, this time from the lower part of the back.
That's where they went before. They got a piano and a clarinet.
I'm going to read what I have to say this evening. I read this because my ad-libbing, although it's not very good in prime time, is not anything at all when I become emotional. And I'm saddened by Wally's retirement tomorrow for 2 reasons. First, Wally has been a friend. When I first came to WPTF, I learned that Bill Jackson had hired me over the objections of his superior, who wanted a 2-man comedy team to do the morning show and not me. I decided if I wasn't wanted, I would leave. And it was Wally Ausley, who over lunch at Shoney's, Dutch lunch, told me I was wanted at WPTF, not only by BJ and most of the staff, but also by the listeners. He told me to stick it out, and I did. Then after Bill passed away and I was again unhappy, Wally set me straight. You see, there's always a rapport between the morning man and the farm director, not only at WPTF, but all across the country as well. They work together, breakfast together, play golf together. They share each other's problems. Again, Wally told me to hang in there, that I was about to be made general manager. Now, what Wally told me was that one of us was going to be general manager and the other was going to be the farm director. And I became the farm director. He was named GM. And that's good. And it's been good working with him because he knew what the job required, and I didn't have to run up to his office and explain everything that I planned to do. The second reason I hate to see Wally leave, at every other station I've worked for, and Vassy can back me up on this one, I've been known as the company tightwad, the station skinflint, the staff miser. I have never been called that at WPTF. Wally has overshadowed me being tight, and I've learned some things from him about money conservation. For example, Now listen carefully. Take an empty briefcase with you to receptions. It's easy to carry back to the room enough sandwiches, snacks, and canned drinks to eat until the next day in time for the next reception. They think I'm kidding. Am I kidding, Norma? No. Saves money on travel expenses. Wally also told me that no one can drink a whole craft coffee. If you'll check the halls of the hotel behind room service, most of it will be hot, too. But you have to take along your own WPTF plastic cup. He pointed out that hotel coffee shops charge $1.50 for coffee now. But my favorite Wally Ausley story is one that was told to me by Wally, with pride, I might add. Pappy Pointer told Wally, and I quote, "Wally, you've got three options. Either you trade cars, paint the one you've got, or park the one you've got at WRAL and walk over here to work." Now, if you don't know Wally, whether it's old car, new car, owned car, or leased car, if he drives it, the paint pops off. We still don't know why. Wally decided to paint his car. But all the car dealers wanted $300 or more. Wally said, "There ain't no way." And then Wally found Cecil's Body Shop, Welding, and Barber Shop over on Pool Road. Cecil would do it for $200. That was still too high. But Cecil said if he could paint it during his spare time, he'd do it for $140. Wally said, "Break that down for me." Well, $50 to sand and tape it, $40 to paint it, $50 for the paint itself. Wally said, "What if I sand it and tape it myself?" He said, $90. "If I furnish the paint, how much?" $50. "Okay, I'll sand it, tape up the chrome in the windows, and I'll bring you the paint. $50, right?" "Right." Well, the auto parts places wanted to charge Wally $60 for the paint. So he went to see Alton Strickland over at Raleigh Paint and Wallpaper. "How much for auto paint?" "For you, Wally, $40. "What about just metal type paint?" $30. "Alton, how much is your glossy outside house paint?" $22. "Your flat paint?" $18. Still too high. Alton said, "Wally, I've got 2 gallons of paint I'll give you if you want it. The color pigment machine messed up last week, and what we've got is a Fuquay greenish purple color nobody wanted." Wally said, "Alton, you're not going to believe this, but Fuquay greenish purple is the very color I'd planned to paint that car all along." Honest to goodness, it's true, everything I'm telling you. With his free paint, here we go back to Cecil. And Cecil said, "There ain't no way that paint's going to work in my paint gun." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I can't use that paint in my gun." "Well, how do I get it on my car?" Cecil said, "You'll have to use a brush." So Wally painted that car himself with a brush, and it didn't cost him a red dime. And proud of it, Wally said after it rained a couple of times, you couldn't even see the brush strokes. Wally, you're going to be remembered by many as the voice of the Wolfpack, 2 NCAA championships. Others will remember you for your years as WPTF's farm director. Staff members will speak of you as the manager who hired that motivating genius who has done for radio sales what pantyhose did to drive-in theaters. Boss who did away with overtime by giving everybody a title. But everyone will think of you, Wally, as a great broadcaster, a fun co-worker, a just boss most of the time, and a hell of a nice guy. Wally, we're going to miss you at the station, but I hope your retirement means we'll have more time to play golf. Now, Wally, I'm going to present you with what I read, and I'm also going to give you back the paper clip that you gave me for Christmas 2 years ago.
Thank you, John. That's great.
You know, I like that. What's funny is Johnny bought the car when it came up for sale, and he still drives it. What he gave Wally as a going-away present was aftershave, but Wally said kerosene always made him break out. I'll tell you a little quick Wally story since he's talking about that. Wally has some good trophies in his den. One is a tremendous bass. That is the prettiest bass I've ever seen. So I was looking at it, I said, Wally, that's terrific. He said, yeah. It said, the guy, what do you call the guy who stuffs them? Got a taxidermist. He said the taxidermist did such a good job you can't even see the bullet holes anymore. Johnny Hood has promised to act as the interpreter for our next speaker, Jim Graham, the Honorable Commissioner of Agriculture for the great state of North Carolina. I can only categorize what you're about to hear as verbal dieseling. Commissioner Graham you look like a penguin tonight. I swear you do. But he was born on a farm. It still shows Jim Graham will still, according to Helen, not go to the bathroom without putting his coat on. Especially in winter, and you'll never see a Sears catalog wasted at the Graham household. But I'm like Jim Graham. I like good gumment. That's Andy Graham. Good gumment. Of course, I like leprechauns too, but I ain't never seen any. He brought with him, I love what Jim does. I've been on many things with you, a lot of things. He's got a box of speeches, I swear to goodness. He has a box of speeches over here. He's looking through and he's got them titled like tobacco, soybeans. Wally, he had two out a minute ago. One was bull and the other was gelding. So I don't know which one he's going to do. Here's Jim Graham.
Somebody up here representing the governor, one representing the president, and the other representing the Lord himself. I represent the devil, Valvano. And he is ready for you, Wally and Howard Cosell. Seriously, I'm honored to be here among this group. I don't know how in the world I got here, but after Hap, you sure do act different tonight you do before we were going to radio in the morning, Johnny. I don't know. Everybody up here is good on black, but you and Johnny, I think they're damn glad you leaving if you don't know what I think. Mayor York, I think, yes, I'm glad that I don't have to follow Val Bano. I'll tell you one thing, this damn Italian food's killing me. That's more fertilizer I ever had in my life over there. The only reason they put Val Vanna last than you all is because you've been here all night. But anyway, Wally roasted me a time or two, and I don't want to run him, Norma. If I roasted him, there would be nothing to him left. But anyway, as Dr. William Menninger once said, 6 essential qualities are key to success: sincerity, personal integrity, humility, courtesy, wisdom, and charity. Wally embodies all of these qualities until his colleagues here tonight. I don't know what. Wally is sincere. They tell you he's cheap. He really means it. He's so tight that I ain't never bought me a cigar. Wally, here's another damn cigar.
Thank you.
Is that a good cigar?
Well, yeah. Wally has personal integrity. He became a farm broadcaster only because the other fellow was starving to death down there and wanted to get free food, and that didn't materialize. he decided he'd stay with agriculture to make a career out of it, and I'm glad to represent the culture side of agriculture tonight. So I'm here to get some from Ausley. I've never seen a more humble person than Wally explained when he stands up on his hind legs and begs for food. I've seen him do it. And courteous in this radio world, he has to be courteous because he can't run fast enough to get away from anyone he insults. He lives by the sword, you die by the sword. Well, he lives by the dunk, you die by the dunk. Anyway, Wally, I don't know what you're going to live for. I remember we had a SASDA meeting on Southern Regional Commission of Agriculture down on the coast. And one old fellow from Hyde County said he thought this fella, Ausley, was John McDonald, farm broadcaster from Nashville, Tennessee. And he said, I tell you, Commissioner Graham, that fella Ausley is bound to be crabby. Did you know he ate a whole damn bushel of crabs? No wonder he's going to retire on the coast. You remember that? But anyway, Wally does demonstrate charity. If it's free, he'll take it. But really behind every successful woman is a fine lady, and that's Norma, you sweet thing. You need a badge of honor. She first met Wally on a blind date. She got more than she expected, but she saw him. Instead of having one date that night, she thought she had a 2-for-1 sale. Really, I've heard many times the WPTF been behind Wally all the way over the years. They had to be for the safety of the crews and the public. In this home of Durham Life, and the reason was because they had to have protection for the press boxes and all, where Wally broadcasts had to be reinforced. It's bad enough for Dornburg in there alone, but when he and Wally got in together, well, some said it looked anytime, any minute, something's going to roll down the mountain like a something I ain't going to call what they say. Don't say it. Don't say it. The only folks who have been behind Wally support him, this is a tremendous attendance tonight. Over the years, it's been the alumni school of a certain, whatever that school, over in Orange County. Ever since he lost his heart and dedicated himself to Wolfpack sports, they won't have anything to do with it. The closest they've ever come to giving them any sort of recognition from the great alma mater, the mecca of all universities, was when he won the Woody Durham look-alike contest. Let me finish. On homecoming weekend, and the owner of the contestant was Willis Casey. But seriously, Wally, we all love you and we all miss you as part of the administration of WPTF Radio, but this is the dang goodness easiest way to get rid of somebody to fire him, fella, in that damn if I've ever seen. You can't get away with it in state government, I'll tell you that. You have to be a grievance. It's early retirement. You going to be one of them emeritus things too? Yeah. Okay. But anyway, Wally will still be broadcasting Wolfpack Sports, and we listen to him with great, great respect and admiration. A little bit about agriculture. He has been a true friend to me personally, and the real reason I'm here tonight is to be darn sure he don't run for Commissioner of Agriculture. He has helped the farmer. He's helped shape some policies and kept agriculture programming such as important part and still a part of WPTF's broadcasting time. And Wally, I know whatever Johnny Hap says, that you've been responsible for keeping agriculture a great part of WPTF's broadcasting time. You helped make our farmers and our producers in North Carolina during this period of adversity that someone in the media cares enough about them to help educate, inform them, as well as the entire public. Norma, I do hope that Wally's decision to step down from administrative duties at PTF was more than honeydew time for him at home. Not knowing Wally, but I'm sure he'll find many things to do to keep him occupied, just like he's always done, and work ain't one of them, honey. Wally, you're a big man like a cat with coming claws. You're a big man other than physical. You're a big man in ability. You're a big man in achievement. You're a big man in service to agriculture people of our state. And you're a big heart, personal quality, and all the many things. But do you remember the day that I was at the farmer's market? Mr. Willie York, bless his heart, a bunch of them taught me into coming down here. And that market was having a hard time. And I was about ready to quit. Wally Ausley walks in. He says, I want to talk to you. He says, you look like you're doing so wonderfully well. And I said, doggone, I was envy of him. He said, I'm about to quit PTF. I said, you damn fool, you better stay there. And look what happened to you now. Don't you never forget, vote for me next time either now. I tried to write a poem about him, but it wouldn't work. But I'm going to say when you get to be as old as Wally, you better watch out, because those things might end up in a folly. It's amazing that a man with a North Carolina degree can broadcast NC sports the way they should be. As Commissioner of Agriculture, I'm glad you were raised in Harnett County on a farm in Clivet Springs, flopping pigs, milking cows, raising a garden, barn tobacco, never did a man any harm. Because I know you heard me say I love my job as Commissioner of Agriculture from time to time, and it sure ain't easy to get this daggone thing to rhyme, but I want you to know your friendship has meant much to me, and I wish you good health and happiness, and remain as happy as you can be.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, Wally, that was definitely the bull speech. The gelding speech you do us next time. Helen Graham told me, he's talking about your romantic life. Helen Graham told me something about Commissioner. Said when she first met him, he had a cow leg, but then after 2 or 3 weeks of practice, he learned how to kiss. Can everybody out there see J.C. Knowles over here? J.C., hold your hand up, please. I just noticed something about J.C. a few minutes ago that I have to share with you. Are you familiar with Carl Malden, the actor who does the American Express commercials? I just realized after looking at J.C. Knowles that Carl Malden has a perfectly normal nose. You're not hiding somebody in that, are you?
No nose jokes.
No, no. Oh, I'll get to you in a minute. Buongiorno. He understood it. I don't know why you didn't. J.C. told me that Wally was at that stage in his life. It only took 3 things to make him happy. Don't worry, Norma. Okay. Don't worry. The scent of magnolia, the oil of Olay, and the milk of magnesia. And I ask you now, who better to talk about Wally Ausley than an antique dealer? Here is J.C. Knowles.
I'm reminded that as Moses stood by the Red Sea and cast his rod upon the water and it divided, and he looked back and said, Aaron, come forth. He said, you're crazy, brother, I'm going first. I wished I'd have gone before Jim Graham. And ladies and gentlemen, we are here this evening to honor a man who, in my opinion, which I seldom respect, as North Carolina's greatest broadcasting personality. And I want to thank WPTF for allowing me to be a part of this evening's gracious occasion. Of course, Maury and Gary knew that I had done all of the benefits
for the big diseases. And I'm happy to say tonight is no exception. And Mr. Roastmaster, if I may, because these wonderful people who gave their money and spent their evening and afternoon preparing to be here this evening, they missed the News Digest on Channel 28. And some important things happened today, and I think they should know about them. They discontinued driver education at North Carolina State this afternoon. The mule died this morning. And of course, if you get up early in the morning, Hap and Johnny have a early bird show on Channel 28, and they have a new sponsor now. The makers of stereo deodorant. It doesn't kill the smell, you just can't tell where it's coming from. And Governor Hunt this afternoon has issued a special statement that he's doing away with the North Carolina Zoo. He said it would be better just to put a fence around Chapel Hill. And of course, Dean Smith is in North Carolina Memorial Hospital this evening. He was walking his dog across Lake Jordan and a boat hit him. And Coach B, I want to assure you this evening from the news I heard tonight, you really won't have a problem with Wake Forest next year. They tried to get a boy in Pennsylvania who was 7'1". They didn't get him. Being a Baptist institution, they asked him on the entrance exam what was Paul's vision on the road to Damascus. And he put down 2020. And Gary, I'm sure that you will be happy to know that they have a new football coach at Duke University. They hired an Oriental. His name is Win-Won Soon. And on the medical front, one of the announcers from WPTF attended a medical seminar at Duke today. They had a French surgeon there who told the story of this young boy who was stabbed in the heart with an ice pick. They took him to the hospital. They rushed him to the operating room. They called the French surgeon. He came and opened the child's chest, took out his heart, and sewed his heart up with these delicate stitches, and the child lived. There happened to be a doctor there from North Carolina, jumped up immediately and said, "Friend, that's nothing. I can remember years ago there was a boy plowing in a tobacco field, and he must have gotten too close to this ravine, but the mule, the plow, and the boy fell 50 feet down in this ravine. There were some farm hands there. They looked the situation over, decided the best thing to do was to free the mule first. They got one of his hind legs free, and while they were working on the other one, that mule hauled off and kicked that boy right in the middle of his forehead and scattered his brains over 2.5 acres of land. They then called the doctor who was telling the story. He looked the situation over, decided the best thing to do was to kill the mule. So he took his gun out of his little black bag, shot the mule, cut off the top of his head, took out a handful of brains and placed into this boy's head. And the reporter with PTF said, "Hold it, wait a minute, doctor. You don't mean to tell me this man lived?" He said, "Live nothing. You probably know him. He's North Carolina's Commissioner of Agriculture." Wally, I'm going to get to you in a minute.
All right.
Johnny, I want to say this to you as a friend. The dye in your hair is running. And you know, Maury, our Toastmaster for the evening, he told me that he has found a new device for birth control. That's right. He watches his wife take off her makeup. know, I believe that Wally Ausley will go down in history as North Carolina's greatest radio announcer. I also believe handling frogs will give you warts. Wally was walking down Fayetteville Street Mall the other day, and just across from the other side in front of Belk's, there were two ladies walking, and one looked over and said, "Hey, isn't that Wally Ausley over there?" And the other lady said, "It sure is, and doesn't he dress beautifully?" And the other one said, "Yes, and fast." I asked Wally during the cocktail party, I said, "Wally, do you waking up an old grouch every morning?" He said, "Hell, I let her sleep as long as she wants to." And you know, Wally is one of two children in his family. They were from very modest means. Both of the boys had to sleep in the same bed. They didn't have any heat in the room. And the bathroom was an outhouse way out in the backyard. Wally is the man who invented the water bed. And his mother would always tell him, to Wally and Lee, his brother, "Now, boys, before you go to town, I want you to change your shorts." So Lee would change with Ollie, and Ollie would change with Lee, and then they'd go to town. And you know, Wally was not an overnight success, as his wife has told me several times. And as it was told to you this evening, Wally used to be the farm director for WPTF. When he first got that position with the station, they invited him down to Wilson County, and they put him up in a old farmhouse there for the weekend, him and his wife. And they were going to have a masquerade party. And he went back to the little house and told his wife, "Honey, we got to go to the community building to have for a masquerade party. We've never been. What in the world would we go dressed as?" She said, "Well, you know, we got a little place up there right out of Raleigh. We got some white-faced cattle. Why don't we go dressed as a bull and a cow?" Friends, they went and they won first prize. I mean, they looked just like a bull and a cow. They danced till about midnight. Finally, they got their prize, was walking home. She said, "Let's cut across the pasture. We can get there a lot quicker." They got halfway across, and she heard something and said, "Oh, my God, honey, there comes a real bull. What are we going to do?" He says, "Well, I'm going to pretend I'm eating grass, but you're in serious trouble." And ladies and gentlemen, before I leave the rostrum to go to the restroom, I would like to tell you the first time I heard Wally Ausley as an announcer. It was not at a radio station. It was at a bus station. And I walked in and I heard him say something like this: "Last call Atlantic, Greyhound bus line 217, loading to gate 6, track 4 on the east side of the terminal. Loading to Cures Beach, Carolina Beach, Seabreeze, Matthew Village, Wilmington, Castletonburg, Old Wallace, Rose Hill, Magnolia, Warsaw, Faison, Calypso, Mount Olive, Goldsboro, Smithfield, Selma, Clayton, and Raleigh. You changing Raleigh, Henderson, Oxford, Portland, Newport News, Richmond, Washington, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Newark, New York, Boston. You changing Wilmington, Toledo, Delco, Freeman, Bolton, Lake Walker, Moore, Hyde, Chadwick, Firebuff, Mullins, Myron, Florence, and Columbia. You changing Columbia, Charleston, Banner, Jacksonville, Miami, Key West. You have a 30-minute layover in Raleigh. You go to Soda Fountain, the cafeteria, and get ham side, chicken side, taste side, roast pork, toast, barbecue, slice, cheese, Swiss cheese, mint cheese, liver, patty, boiled egg, ham, lamb, beef, bear, bull, hog, frog, dogs, rats, cats, bats, slips, grits, peanut, popcorn, cracker jacks, cigars, candy bars, matches, cases, cold drinks, apples, oranges, bananas, and peanut butter. They have a blue plate special, a rotten egg on burnt toast with a glass of dishwater. Four things, as I think, in closing of Wally Ausley. He is a beautiful man. He has a beautiful wife. He works for a beautiful company. And I'm proud to say all three are my friends. Thank you. Can't help and tell you that J.C. told me just before we started tonight, he says, "Mama, Mama married her brother, but it didn't affect me none." Oh, boy, I should have tinkled on him, shouldn't I? Somewhere between Pine Level and Chadbourne, Aden, Laurinburg, Benson. Oh, boy. Next speaker died at birth. He is our sales manager for WPTF, Bob Evans. Bob's the only person I know look in a blender and say something like, "Wow, I could have had a VO." He goes around the station every day this week, says, "How far can I go?" I mean, I said, "Well, you know, I don't know." He asks his salespeople, and they say, "Say anything you like. Say anything you like." You know better now, don't you? He takes roll call, and he asks people, he says, "If you're absent, raise your hand." Am I right, Don? Don Fowler. But he is a planner. Bob Evans is a planner. He planned his own funeral. He bought the lot and the casket, one of these walk-in caskets with an ice maker even. And he told Dottie, he says, "I want to be buried face down." She said, "Why?" He said, "I want to see where I'm going." And he was talking to the folks at Brown Wynn and our friends at Durham Life Insurance, and they asked him, they said, "Bob, how much money have you set aside for Dottie and the family?" He said, "Oh, I set aside about $5,000. They said, "You're not planning to stay dead very long, are you, Bob?" Well, he is a man of many talents, and you'll soon find out that humor is not one of them. Bob Evans.
Hell, I think I'll just go to the bathroom with J.C. I'm glad I'm in radio. I didn't realize it's so damn hot being a TV star. It is hot up here. Wally, the one thing I want to ask you before I get started, I know that Don's enticed you every way he knows to stay, and you are sure you're going. Mm-hmm. Okay, because we're roasting you tonight, and if you show up Monday morning, a lot of us are going to be well done. Wally had a birthday a couple of weeks ago, and that's how he can take early retirement. And I happened to be out of the office, and they had a birthday cake, and they sang happy birthday. So, Wally, I just want to sing one line of my birthday song to you. Darling, you are growing older. True. There's a fallacy going around, and Wally backed it up when Derek Whittenberg shot that long shot. Lorenzo dunked it, and Wally said, "That is the greatest play that Jimmy V will ever plan." That damn ball was airborne so long it should have had a stewardess aboard it. There's no way it could have been called. You've heard him say what a nice guy Wally Ausley is. You've never had to meet with him 8:30 in the morning. That's one thing I've learned working for Wally Ausley: hide until 10 o'clock. Norma told me that because Norma's my friend too. The only thing he can say from 8:30 to 10 o'clock is unless you ask him to spend money, he can say no, no, no. That's the only word you can understand him saying. Now, when I first went to work for Wally, someone on the staff said, "Now, you have to understand that Wally is a very conservative person, a very conservative manager." So I was talking budget with Wally one day, and I wasn't getting anywhere, and I said, "Wally, you a very conservative manager." He said, "Hell no, Bob, I'm tight. I think it's wonderful, one, to know oneself so well." The most hectic time of the year is planning budget. I worked with Wally on the 1983 budget to the last hour of December 31st, 1982. January the 1st was a holiday. At 11 o'clock in the morning, January the 2nd, I was on the carpet for being over budget. And I said, "Wally, the month's just started." He said, "I mean for the year." But I tell you one thing, he takes care of business. You can put in a request in mid-afternoon for a pencil sharpener, and you can bet your life by midday morning the next morning there'll be a razor blade on your desk. 2 years ago, Wally had the honor of being elected to the highest officer in the North Carolina Association of Broadcasters, the president. And his first thing was to plan a committee to pick the city for next year's meeting. And that committee had a tough job. It's not easy to find a McDonald's that can seat all those places in one city. If you've been in our radio station, you will notice when you get on the elevator, there's a first to fourth floor. Now, how many of you have ever been on the third or fourth floor? The third floor, the department head has found. That's Wally's flogging room if you're over budget. And no one's ever dared what to ask on the fourth floor. But I'll say this, as busy as Wally is, Senior Vice President of Durham Life Broadcasting, General Manager of WPTF Radio, he still maintains a high profile. You can find him any spring at yard sales picking out next fall's wardrobe. We picked McGavin and Gill to be our national reps. They're the ones that handle our advertising in cities throughout the country. And they told me on our first trip to New York and Atlanta, it was the first time they had to ask directions at a Trailway bus station. But I'll tell you one thing, and Barbara verified this, our national sales lady, we are well rested and geared to go the next day because the YM and YWCA are very quiet in those cities. So much for that. I'd like to say one thing on a serious note, that people are very fortunate when they can work in any business and have a manager that loves and respects every member of his staff. It's very seldom in business you will find a staff that every member loves and respects their manager. Somebody somewhere once said you can only grow old by deserting your ideals. If that's true, Wally Ausley will remain young forever. Wally, you've earned your retirement. You enjoy it, buddy.
I will. Thank you.
Good salesmen are hard to find. I know I looked this afternoon in 3 movie theaters and a massage parlor before I found one of ours. You heard Bob DeBartoleben, the biggest name in weather. We've got literally the biggest in sports. Gary Dornburg. Gary had to go to the doctor this week. He's been a little under the weather planning this event, and he is largely responsible for this. So if you're mad at anybody, you can take it out on Gary. But he is largely responsible for this. And I told him, I said, Gary, the reason you have to go to the doctor is probably everything you ate this week. And the doctor told him, he said, last time I saw that, Gary, the whole herd had to be destroyed. He grabbed Gary by the wallet and told him to cough. I think the final diagnosis was anorexia ponderosa. Gary has a younger brother, Steve Dornburg. Steve's been taking some pictures here tonight. He's down on his knees most of the time in front of Gary, you know, adulation and everything, the way young brothers are about their older brothers. I was that way about my older brothers. I remember Ruth Dornburg, Gary's mother, telling me a story about Steve asking Gary a question when Steve was much younger. He said, Gary, why do you have to wash your hands before you eat? Gary said, to get a better grip on the food. But Gary's kind of on a half-hearted diet now. I mean, ordering half a grapefruit with gravy seems perfectly normal to me. And they tell me you are what you eat. And if you look on his plate, you'll find that bologna sandwich. He is the only person Weight Watchers has ever burned Tums on his lawn. I want you to know what a real thrill it is to be here with my friend Wally Ausley now.
Tell me, Bruce, what position did you play?
Well, I used to be a tight end, but now I'm a wide receiver.
What do you like best about football, Bruce?
Oh, God, being tackled, the huddle, the showers are nice.
What's the toughest thing about football?
Getting my hair to do right. It's a bitch after the game.
Well, when you meet people in public like here, do you find it that they find it hard to believe that you are a football player?
Well, sometimes my teammates are a little surprised, especially when I used to be a quarterback. The center got a few surprises.
What's your favorite play, Bruce?
My favorite play? Oh, God. End around, perhaps, or gang tackle, maybe.
I hesitate to ask, but your favorite position?
Oh, the prone position, I suppose, or missionary.
By the way, just for our records here, because I really don't know, in your years at Carolina, how many times did you score?
You mean today? Twice on the field and 3 times in the locker.
Well, this has certainly been interesting.
Yes, it has. Listen, I've got to get back in the game now. I think the big left tackle likes me, the bruiser.
Well, I'm going up to the press box now, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, Bruce, before I let you go, what's your number so I can spot you on the field?
Well, 69, of course. Listen, if it doesn't work out with the tackle, what are you doing for dinner?
Well, we're definitely going Dutch, and I'll meet you in Holland. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, Jim Valvano is our final speaker, and it's only appropriate. I'm delighted, Pam, that you're here tonight. Pam told me that Jim would not marry her until she said, olive skin makes good kin. Jim Valvano is an Italian if you're from North Carolina, and Italian if you're from New York City. He married this lovely, beautiful Jewish girl over here, and their sons had to genuflect in order to be circumcised, I understand. Or play leapfrog, I'm not sure which one. She said every time she followed Jim into church, she felt like every time he kneeled, she played leapfrog. He's known as the Italian stallion of basketball, Frank McGuire's interpreter, Joan Rivers of basketball. Can we talk? You've heard him. He's a man of 1,000 stories. If you count the 500 times he's told both of them. I mean, what can you say about a man who pals around with Bob Evans? Man's been dead for 9 years. But I worship the water you walk on, Jim. And I'd like to introduce now a man we call the Rocky of basketball, Jim Valvano.
Goodness gracious, I'll tell you something. It's 10:10. We have been here for 4 hours, and I have great news for you. I am not here to roast Wally, but to give him somewhat of an award. Nor would I want to follow some of JC. That's unbelievable. Could you slide your speech down here quick? I feel like I'm at a 4-H meeting, to be honest with you. Holy God, guy from New York coming to this group. What did you say, by the way, Jim? I mean, you're saying you don't understand me. What the hell was that all about? That's all I want to know. I know I'll vote for you, but I don't know what it was about. Really. Hap Hansen's dynamite. When we were there, I said to him, Hap, how about the problems we're having in Central America? And Hap said, there's a cold front in Iowa, right? That's about what we had. But I really, it is late, and I'm not here to roast Wally. as much as I knew everybody was gonna get him pretty good, and they did. And I really want to just share something with you. That's all. And I carry this with me all the time. And then we'll let Wally, have his rebuttal with everybody here. But I think, hey, I've only been here 3 years, and I think Wally's terrific. I think you'll like this. I know I do. Let's listen.
Dornburg in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Well, it's been my pleasure to broadcast the Wolfpack for 23 straight years now. This has been the most exciting team that we've watched, I suppose, as far as surprises. Get it to Elijah Wally. Here's a big guy, squealing, shot, blocked by McQueen. Goes out, blocked it, and got it down, too. Now, Houston definitely now has it on a little crushed ice anyway, wouldn't you say? Yep. There's the ball knocked away by Sidney. Lowe makes the steal. Lowe down across midcourt. Goes to the free throw line. Addition to Whitford. Tries a 22-footer. Bangs it in. Cannon back out to Lowe. He pops a 20-footer. Bangs it in. So now the Wolfpack is within 2. 44-42. Don't give up on the cardiac kid, the Cinderella bug yet. He's going to try a 22-footer. He hits again. Perry Cannon burning another one. 46-44. Houston by 2. Elijah Wally turns, puts the jumper over McQueen. Good. Houston 48, the Wolfpack 44. Franklin goes down to the corner. There's the baseline drive and a shot by Young. It's good. 50-44. Houston by 6. There's a jumper by Lowe from deep. He hits. Good 25 feet away. 50-46. Clyde Drexler, a 6'7 junior, going to the free throw line. And he has just added another one. 51-46. He makes this one 52-46. Sidney moves to the right, gets the pick, shoots over McQueen, and hits again. Sidney Lowe is picking him right now. He has 8. 52-48. Whitberg passes man up the lane, puts it off the glass, missed it. Rebounded by Elijah Wally. Throws it and intercepted by Sidney Lowe in the backcourt. Lowe goes to Whitberg, shoots the left corner. Swing! Derek Whitberg in the corner, and the Wolfpack is within 2. Down to the left-hand corner, Young goes to Elijah Wally. He shoots over McQueen, and he missed it. Tapped out by McQueen. Grabbed by Lowe. Sidney into the front court. Sidney Lowe whips it down to Whitberg. 25-footer. Good! He has tied the score. All Jim Valvano has ever asked for from his ball club is to be in a position at the end of the game to at least have a chance to win. Can you believe it? The national championship resting now on the Wolfpack hand. 44 seconds left. The game tied at 52 all. The Pack with the ball. Inbound.
Now, I just want to stop for a second. You see, what was said before, I mean, do some of you folks really, when I call timeout and set up that lob pass to Lorenzo Charles, I can't believe that some of you don't believe that, I mean, let's be honest. Let's see how many Carolina fans are here tonight. Okay, let me, put your hands up. Let me see. Go ahead. Go ahead. There's something State fans we just haven't done yet that Carolina fans do very well. See, I was the year before. I've said this, as Maury will tell you, I've said this before. The year before in New Orleans, I was sitting up in Section K, and you may recall there was about, 20 seconds. Woody, how much time left when Georgetown got the ball? 20 seconds. Thank you, Woody. 20 seconds to... Hey, listen, the reason I came to, I thought he was retiring tonight. That's why I was here. I cut my vacation short to come, but 20 seconds to playing the game and everybody's up in the stands. I was sitting right in the Carolina section. This is a true story. And they were saying, well, I'll tell you, wonder what John Thompson's going to do. I bet you he'll do something really tricky, something smart. He'll probably pass the ball inside to that big kid in the undershirt, right? No, maybe not. I know, he'll hit the kid from Gastonia coming off a pick for a great jump shot, right? So that's what he'll probably do. Or maybe he'll drive himself. So they'll probably do something smart. And all Carolina fans were saying, yeah, I'll tell you, it doesn't matter what he does because Dean will outsmart him. Said Dean will do something smart, right? Well, here they came down, and here was Freddie Brown with the ball. He looked inside. Did he throw it to him? No. Did he throw it to the Gastonia kid? No. Did he take a shot? No. Did he drive? No. He faked it. What did he do? He threw the ball to James Worthy. Is that not what he did, right? And I'm up there in Section K, right? And the game ends, all Carolina fans. See, I told you Dean was smart. See how he... Hey, see how he set that up, right? Well, if they can all believe that, why can't you State fans believe I called that last damn play? Huh? That's what I want to know. Right, Jim? So I want you to hear Wally's call of my last great call.
The clock is ticking. Wittenberg's double team gets it to Gannon, who's checked in. Down a low. A half minute left in the ball game. Wittenberg, double team goes to Gannon. State has it spread out right now. A lob to Bailey. 25 seconds left. Thurl gets it back to Gannon out of Wittenberg at the center line. Now along in the left corner. Back down to Bailey on the left sideline. To Gannon in the middle. They're spread in four corners. Back to Wittenberg. 14, 13. Now to Gannon. Gannon back to low. 10 seconds. Now Sidney goes to Bailey in the corner. 5 seconds left to Wittenberg. Wittenberg tries about a 30-footer. No good. Step back. Lorenzo Charles. State. Lorenzo Charles slams it in. A missed shot from 35 feet.
Hey, I'll tell you. You know, Wally, you're terrific. That's fantastic. And what I'd like to do is to present Wally with his second national championship ring from NC State. We've had from everybody, right? We've had from Raleigh and the mayor and the governor, and we've had God. This is from NC State and Lorenzo Charles, a higher force here. Well, this is your 1983 national championship ring.
While Wally puts his ring on, I just want you to notice the influence that the team has had on Jim. He carries a jam box.
A ghetto blaster!
Listen, there's nothing else I can say about Wally at this moment, so I'm going to, Wally, it's all yours.
That's a nice ring. Look at that. It's pretty. Thank you. I do know that I'm thrilled about the scholarship. I can't tell you about what that does to me to see my friends come here like this. Dr. Ed Pickard, who prays better than I do, preaches better than I do, plays golf better than I do, who started it off so well tonight. And Felton, who took time out of his busy deer hunting schedule to be here with us tonight. And Don Curtis, who's going to direct our company, whose profit at his radio stations at Curtis Broadcasting in the last 6 years is 144 cases of Kool-Aid that he took in trade. I'm enjoying the ones you gave me, by the way. And I would also, let me get my roster. I have one more day at the station. And I want to see Hap Hansen, Johnny Hood, Bob Evans, Gary Dornburg, and Maury Odell in my office at 8:30 in the morning. I want to thank my company so much for making this scholarship possible. I was thrilled when we heard from Rudy earlier tonight as director of our foundations that there's never been a scholarship before in the speech communications department at North Carolina State. And so I'm real thrilled that this is going to be there now from this night forward. And that Durham Life Broadcasting contributed about $5,000 to this affair tonight to pay for everybody's meal and the expenses of renting the hall and the other attendant expenses and the decorations and so forth, in order that 100% of what you gave is going to this scholarship. And Felton, thank you. God has blessed me in many ways. Being born to the greatest parents in the world. My mom passed away a couple of years ago. If she were here, she would have believed some of these things that these people said about me. But my dad is here, and I'd like for him to stand up. Mr. Urban Ausley, right here. Thank you, Dad. Thank you, Dad. Because I want you all to know that I've made, that's not a fire alarm, is it? Remember, alphabetical order, Jim. I want you all to know that I've made many mistakes in my life, but not a one of them
ever came as a result of not being well trained and well taught by my parents.
Good morning and welcome once again to Morning Digest. This is the day you've been waiting for. It's Friday. The weekend is coming up. Hap's going to tell us later what a beautiful weekend it's going to be, and Phil will fill us in on the news. But right now, it's a sort of a sad duty and a happy duty at the same time to welcome an old friend to the show. Well, let's see. I don't want to say he's an old friend.
He's an old friend.
An old friend to the show, Wally Ausley, the general manager of WP. I can say that for about 8 more hours.
That's right.
The general manager of WPTF Radio, who is this very day retiring. Wally, it's great to have you on the show, and I hope that even though you are retiring, that you're going to come back and visit with us from time to time.
Indeed I will. I'll be coming back a lot, Roy, because there's no way I can spend almost 24 years with the company and not come back, because I really do love this company.
Well, we had a big roast last night out at McKimmon Center. Which
yeah,
was,
I looked a little toasted, right?
You look very well toasted. Of course, the thing was, Master of Ceremonies was Maury Odell. Mm-hmm. We won't make any comments about Maury Odell or his sense of humor, but it was a really fine affair where a lot of people, they were kind of mean to you out there last night.
Well, I guess maybe you would put it that way, but when it really came down to the bottom line, Roy, I thought they were very kind, not only to me, but to the occasion, because it was a wonderful occasion for me. Not only sort of a retirement dinner, if you want to call it that, although when I was approached about a retirement dinner and asked if I would show up, I said absolutely not. But then when they said, hey, it's going to be more than that, we're going to have a benefit for a scholarship in speech communication so that somebody can learn the broadcasting business at North Carolina State, then I said, hey, count me in, because you can use me any way you want to, so long as it's helping somebody. And didn't we really help last night?
Really, it started out to be the establishment of a scholarship fund, but it wound up to be something a little bit more. It turned out, well, a lot more. It turned out that so many of your friends came and so much money was raised that it's not just a scholarship anymore, it's an endowment.
What a thrill to present a check for $10,000 last night to Mr. Rudolph Pate, who is the Vice Chancellor at NC State, and to Dr. Bill Franklin, who is Head of Speech Communications at the university, and to give them a check for $10,000, fully endowing a scholarship. And Roy, the even better news than that is there's probably going to be another $1,000 or $2,000 as checks are still coming in this morning from people who want to donate to that scholarship fund, and we'll be adding those to it. So the first time ever that NC State Speech Communications Department has had a scholarship. So I'm very proud of that. And that my friends, hopefully not all of them, but a whole lot of friends, over 400 of them came last night. There's no way I can thank them for showing that friendship.
Well, we couldn't have gotten all of your friends into McKimmon Center. It'd be kind of tough to get all of your friends into Raleigh all together. 24 years, Wally. You came here 24 years ago. What was your first job at WPTF?
My first job involved sports and staff announcer. That was my job. That's why I came here. I did, my first thing in the morning, Roy, was something almost like you used to do on the television station here. And Roy and I go back about the same number of years in our career, I think. We started about the same time. And I know you've
But I'm not ready to retire.
No. But see, mine is really not. Retirement indicates that all the eggs are in the nest and everything is all set. You see, mine is quitting. Yeah, it's just saying, hey, I think I'll do something different, like mess around the beach and put my nets out and dig clams and stuff like that, and be with my wife and my children and my father more, and that's what I'm going to do. But Roy, I did the 7 o'clock news, the 7:30 weather. The late Bill Jackson, he and I were partners. He was the greatest morning man ever, and he was on our station. He and I did a couple of talk shows together in the mornings, just chatted back and forth, called Gab Fest. And then we did sports together. And I did a record show Broadway show tunes that I did like at 9:30 in the morning. That was my first job, and I'd been here less than a year, and because I'd been born and reared in the country, that was my only qualification, I was asked if I would be the farm director of the station, too.
How much farming had you done?
Well, not very much, simply because, but my dad is a very smart man, and even though he was in the highway construction business, he was a superintendent for a construction company, but he wanted us to live in the country and be brought up there, which I think is one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. I wouldn't take anything for that rural background. And I knew, because I had been on the farm, and as a youngster growing up, I worked for people on the farm and did some things on our own land too, but I didn't know anything about farming, and I hadn't even been connected with it for like 20 years. But the fact that I was born and reared in the country, and my folks still lived down there, even though my dad had retired, I was asked if I would do it. And it was a great moment in my life. I really enjoyed that phase of my career.
Now, you were in farm broadcasting for how many years?
Well, from 1961 until 1973 or 4, so about 12 or 13 years.
And it was all sort of on-the-job training.
Oh, yeah. I learned all about it, really, I did. And it's wonderful to live in a place like this with NC State University, which is your land-grant university for the state. So I should send them tuition. They taught me so much.
I think your friends sent them a lot of tuition last night.
They did that, right.
Wally, we're going to take a break here and go out to the newsroom, see what the weather's going to be for the weekend. And right now, Phil Pratt is standing by. He'll tell us what's happening in the news. Phil?
We're going to get Wally started off for a great weekend on his first weekend of retirement. I hope he enjoys his boating.
I can guarantee you he will. Before Wally and I resume our conversation, as we mentioned, there was a roast last night at McKimmon Center. One of the speakers, I don't guess I have to introduce him, one of the speakers was the Commissioner of Agriculture for the state of North Carolina, Jim Graham, and we'd like to show you at least a portion of his remarks right now.
Next time, I tried to write a poem about him, but it wouldn't work. But I'm going to say, when you get to be as old as Wally, you better watch out, because those things might end up in a folly. It's amazing that a man with a North Carolina degree can broadcast NC sports the way they should be. As Commissioner of Agriculture, I'm glad you were raised in Harnett County on a farm in Calivet Springs, flopping pigs, milking cows, raising a garden, barn tobacco, never did a man any harm. Because I know you heard me say I love my job as Commissioner of Agriculture from time to time, and it sure ain't easy to get this daggone thing to rhyme, but I want you to know your friendship, it meant much to me, and I wish you good health and happiness, and remain as happy as you can be.
The Commissioner of Agriculture had best stick to agriculture and give up poetry, perhaps.
Wasn't that great?
That was great. He was one of many speakers there last night.
And I thank all of them.
Most of them did somewhere in their presentations find something pleasant to say about you.
That's right. I think that's probably just a pretty good ratio, Roy, of what they could think of good to say to me. Is if they ended up with 10 seconds good out of 5 minutes, that's not bad.
Well, we don't have an awful lot of time left, and I don't want to leave people with the impression that they're not going to see or hear from Wally Ausley again, because Wally Ausley is going to continue to do the games on the Wolfpack network, both football and basketball.
That's right. Roy, about 10 years ago, when I went into the management of this company, I continued to do the Wolfpack sports by choice. At that time, it just sort of seemed like the thing to do. And then after a while, I realized that I was pretty well hooked on it and how much I enjoyed it. And so as I've told people for the last 10 years, doing Wolfpack sports was an avocation for me. Now it might be lots more than that. For all I know, it might be therapy. But whatever the reason is, yes, I do enjoy following the Wolfpack, and we'll continue to do that for WPTF and our network.
And you'll be taking it easy from now until the time the football season starts, I presume.
Well, yes, in a way that it will be different. I like to be outside and work. So we're going to do some things like our beach house that we built in 1957, Roy, and I'm going to be able to spend a little time there. Needs some repairs. So I'm going to spend some time doing some carpentry and plumbing and stuff like that. Some gardening down on the farm.
Before we leave, Wally, I noticed there's a ring on your finger there. I would like for you to show that to
yeah, which camera are we going to show that on?
Well, let's show it on this one,
okay.
Right over here.
All right, good. Are my hands dirty? I don't know.
No, your hands aren't dirty. No.
Okay, very good. This is the National Championship ring for the state basketball team. Coach Balvano presented that to me on behalf of the athletic department of North Carolina State University last night, and the members of the basketball team and the coaching staff are wearing this ring, and I'm very proud that they decided to give me one also.
Well, I can only say, Wally, that I hope you get another one next year.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Wally, great to have you on the show
Roy,
this morning. I know I'm going to be seeing a lot of you, but it's been great working with you, and we'll look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you, Roy. You do a great job here for our television station, and thank you for having me with you.
And we will be back with more right after this.
One of North Carolina's best-known personalities retires this week after 35 years in broadcasting. Wally Ausley will retire as Vice President and General Manager of WPTF Radio. Wally started his radio career back in 1948. He worked in several Durham and Raleigh stations before joining WPTF in 1960 as Farm Director, later Sports Director. Wally brought a tremendous amount of knowledge to both those fields. He was a man who did his homework. But beyond that, we're sure it was his jovial and outgoing personality that won such a large and loyal audience. You just couldn't be unhappy or think about your cares and troubles while listening to Wally Ausley call a football or basketball game. His own genuine love of sports, his warmth and friendliness came across in every game. His fellow sports announcers 4 times named him Sportscaster of the Year. So we're glad to know that even though he's retiring from management, Wally will continue to be the voice of the Wolfpack for North Carolina State football and basketball. We're glad we don't have to say goodbye to Wally Ausley, but just congratulations on a distinguished career.